Good morning, what's shaking, what's happening? Welcome back to Tasty Bites Timeless Travels. Today is Disembarkation Day for our Holland America Ground World Voyage and taking the Bright Line back up to Orlando. Come join us. 124 days around the world, and we have come back to where we started this channel at Port Everglades. Alright, so it's 7:01 a.m. We are magically all packed. I think I have one bag that's going to be overweight, but we will have to wait and see because everything else is at 50 pounds, so 3 bags already sent off. So if it's overweight, it's overweight. I don't know what we're going to do. But long trip, long cruise, and I cannot believe today we're actually leaving. I woke up this morning and I was like, I cannot believe I'm sleeping somewhere different tonight. And we're skipping breakfast today. We said all of our goodbyes yesterday, so today it's just focusing on getting off. We have a 9:30 train. We did that a little by design. We wanted to make sure that it just didn't turn into an over emotional day because we've got a lot to do when we get back to Orlando. But what an interesting way to wake up and to see this site again, and can take my phone off airplane mode for a long time. Not just a few hours like in Puerto Rico, but it's been a great cruise, but we're about to have a real busy day. So we are waiting on the ship to be cleared. We are 4-star mariners, so we have red tags, which means that our bags should be called about 7:45 or so. We woke up, we didn't mean to wake up at 6 in the morning. We had our alarm set for a little bit later, but by then the ship had already been pulled in. They said last night in the show that the captain was going to try to get here very early to try to get us cleared first because there's so much luggage and there's so many travel plans that they knew that it was going to take some extra time. Plus, they have to do almost a whole ship reset to bring on the new passengers, and they want everybody off by 9:30 in order to do that. So it's going to be a busy day, and this ended with about 1,100 passengers, which was way more than they had originally thought when we left. Holland Marketing did a great job of selling that last leg. So, but now, my friends, it's time to end it, at least for this adventure. So let's get this day started. Let's go. And with that, we're going to call it a world cruise, and we're going to introduce C to the channel.
Hi, everybody. It's me, and it's my bracelets.
Woo.
First of all, I want to thank you guys for following us along, and we're here today to give our little wrap-up and answer any questions that you might have. Please post them in the comments or whatever you do. I'm not a big social media person, but Ma'am has been helping me along, so I'm going to let her take the lead, and then we're just going to try and be as helpful as we can.
All right.
So let's go.
All right. So we got this divided into some segments. So let's start with segment 1, planning.
Planning.
All right. So, and I have said this on a few times, we did not book the World Cruise until December 19th. And it left on January 4th. So our planning is not necessarily one that you ever need to follow if you're going to do a world cruise. We're more of how to do a world cruise at a last second kind of folks, but it was part of a big downsizing. We had sold our home in Orlando, and we said, oh, we could be really responsible with this equity, or we could do something crazy. And we said, let's go see the world while we're still physically able to do it. So that's why we did it so quickly. Now, doesn't mean that we didn't have to plan some things. So I do suggest the Facebook groups and the Cruise Critic roll calls, because that's where I got the majority of my information for planning. Because that's where I found out what visas to get. Because if you go through the service, and people said they went through whatever, I forgot what the service is called that Holland uses, they would spend a small fortune getting visas and all kinds of things for these countries that they weren't necessarily needed because the ship was taking care of it, or they'd gotten a waiver. Like Gibraltar was one that they got a waiver for, and some people had spent the money to get a visa because of a change in the EU requirements. So people do this cruise every year, and that's how I was able to tap into their knowledge, and because they knew exactly who to call and what to ask, and they shared that. So if you're going to plan something like this, definitely join the Facebook group and the Cruise Critic Roll Call. I think that's where the majority of like admin planning about the cruise itself came into. Now, excursion planning, that was more of a, we looked at Viator, we looked at short excursions. I know I asked C, like, what are things that you want to do? It's a lot of planning, and it was also one that I think we couldn't get too ahead of ourselves on.
I would agree with that. Since it was a 124-day cruise, we basically had to pick and choose what we really wanted, what we had a need to see, as opposed to what, oh, okay, what would you like to see? Wants versus needs. Again, money played into it, but honestly, I didn't do a whole lot of planning. M did it. For me, it would just provoke a whole lot of anxiety, and I just was like, just tell me when to pack and what excursions were going on, and bring the binoculars, things of that nature.
Now, that being said, C did the majority of the packing.
I did the majority of the packing, and we packed too much. So for planning, we thought, I mean, personally, I thought I brought too many clothes.
Yeah, I agree.
Because
I think I had outfits I never wore.
Right, and we were blessed to be able to have free laundry. Oh, let me see.
About a month into the
About
cruise.
a month into it. So, but you know, when you go on a cruise of this length, people really don't care what you're wearing. If I saw that shirt yesterday. For me, no one really like looked at me weird, gave me the eyeballs because I was wearing the same shirt, maybe once a week kind of thing. But yeah, packing was, if you're not organized, it might be a little crazy. I don't know.
And she also made sure that we had our own shampoo that we use at home, our own soap. Those were things that were important. So
Yes.
we took all the toiletries. We didn't, I think we bought toothpaste, but
Yes.
other than that, everything was brought from home. And because we knew we were going to lose weight, we knew we were going to pick up souvenirs so it would like counteract itself.
Yes.
But
I did have to buy one bottle of contact lens solution. I do have hard contact lenses, and I didn't plan on wearing them every day. Whereas back at home in Orlando, I sometimes wear my glasses majority of the day. So I had to plan for that, going through contact lens solution more than I had planned. And toothpaste, we were one tube short, but again, medication, very, very important. And oops, sorry, I got my little thing here. Imparting your planning. You have to take the medication that you need from your doctor, especially if it's prescription, or you can try and buy it in ports of call. But medication, very important, part of planning, things that you would need. And when you're planning a cruise this long, I thought of it, and I don't know how M feels, but this was our floating apartment for 4 months. So it's a lifestyle, and part of that is planning your everyday routine as much as you can do on a cruise ship.
And then other stuff that people worry about with a world cruise, for mail, we had it forwarded to my sister's house.
Yes.
Cars, they watched one of our cars. The other was in storage, and my nephew would go by and check on it. And like I said, we had sold our home, so our stuff was just in a regular climate-controlled storage unit. Other folks that had left their houses, a lot of them had neighbors or other family check on them, things like that. And we don't have any pets or kids, so we were in a point in our life that we could close everything, go on this cruise, and then come back and restart. So planning, like I said, we're not necessarily the ones to follow with planning, except maybe the packing tips that she gave, but we do tend to be last minute cruisers, and this was no exception. So it was, and then I always thought that we were going to miss a stop too. So I also didn't want to overplan the ports because I didn't want to get my heart set on something and then we miss it for weather, medical, things like that.
Yeah.
But that never happened. But that's going to be planning.
Yeah.
All All right, so that brings us into our next segment, things that we like. So, things that we liked about the cruise and port stops and things like that. So, for me, I'll start with things that I liked about the cruise. I like that we only had to unpack once to see the world.
I agree.
I think that was a big benefit. The crew is amazing. Apparently, the crew, when it comes to the world cruise, a lot of the crew requests to do it. They want to be there. They want to have these long term like relationships and you know getting to know with these guests. And a lot of them will do the world cruise every year. Like Priestley, the dining room maitre d', does it every year. That's what he does. It's the bulk of his career. Is he loves doing the world cruise. So I think the crew is really top notch because they want to be there and deal with the same guest over and over again. Favorite port stops, I loved Singapore, and I also liked Langkawi in Malaysia. I thought it was really really good, and I was surprised by the continent of Africa. That was a continent we didn't plan anything at. It was a bonus stop for us, and I really enjoyed it. So those would be in my things that I liked was, you know, not unpacking just once and all that stuff. What are some
Well,
things you
for
liked?
me, I mean, I'm all about convenience. And when we first started talking about this, I did not want to go on an airplane and get off an airplane and go into a hotel and get another hotel and all that. It was almost like one-stop shopping since we were blessed and able to do it at that point in our lives. Favorite stops for me, number one would be Easter Island. It was so
Yeah.
mystical and magical. And so many folks aren't able to go out there. So many cruise ships miss the port. And we were blessed to be able to go there 2 days in a row.
Two times.
Two
Two
times.
days.
Two
Two
times.
days.
And it's just, and also touching the Great Pyramid in Egypt was phenomenal for me. Seeing our friend Seppa, hi Seppa and Andrew, in Tonga, that we hadn't seen in almost 10 years, that was very cool. But for me, just there was a lot of ports. There's just so many to remember. Oh, I did have my little list, but it's inside. But anyway, the thing that I most liked on a global scale was being able to see the world while we still had our mental faculties and physically able, and to be able to see how other folks in the world, other parts of the world, I had never even heard of three-quarters of these countries that we were going to. So it was a pleasant surprise. It was very eye-opening, and it was a very humbling experience. I'm not a very religious person, but I was able to find a church community on the cruise with Pastor Reed and Esther and Ernie and, geez, everybody else on board. That gave me structure in my day. Whereas coming from being retired all these years, structure has been an issue for me. And cruising provided me structure. It provided me the opportunity to see the world and learn new things and taste new foods. And it was very eye-opening, yet very humbling.
And then it's also, you know, when we talk about things that we liked, and we also talk about like why did we cruise, as opposed to we could have probably gone to just where we wanted to go and flown and it had been cheaper, but I think it would have been more tiring, more draining. Airports are a mess nowadays. What if the flights get delayed? You have to pre-plan a lot of things. So that's the convenience factor. But we also, it was like we spent 124 days with a little like floating community.
We
You know,
did.
it wasn't just the crew, it was also the other passengers, you know, that were around us that we really got to know and just enjoyed their company, you know. So
Yes, yes, and it's people we never would have met
Yeah.
otherwise. I mean, will we meet these folks again on another cruise? Who knows?
yeah. But
And
but even some of the things we liked, there's ports that I like that I would have never thought to ever go to, like Langkawi, Malaysia.
yeah,
You know. So
true, true. Sydney, Australia. I mean,
well, Sydney, Australia, we would have gone to no matter what.
well,
but,
that's true, but
I
dear
don't know if we
God.
would have gone to Cairns though, and we
Yeah.
really liked
Is it
Cairns.
Cairns or Carnes or
It's Cairns.
Cairns?
It's Cairns, Australia.
It's Cairns.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we would have gone there except for this cruise. I think we would have stayed more in the Sydney or maybe done a cruise out of Sydney, an Australian cruise, but who knows? But yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you liked, enjoyed?
I like the whole experience.
Yeah.
Again, we were so lucky and blessed to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It was a once in a lifetime gig, and other folks are blessed to be able to do this every year. We are not, and probably never will be. But I really like the experience.
All right, things that we did not like. As great as the cruise was, of course, there's going to be a few things that you don't like. For me, number one, the balcony room. It was loud. It was frustrating that because we were so close to the front of the ship, they would just pressure wash without telling us. The key broke. The weather shipping wasn't very good. We've had balconies on other lines in that area of the ship, and we've never heard noise like that. So for me, the balcony, because we booked so late, the ocean views were the biggest demand, I want to say, because the ocean views and the balcony were almost the same price. So we said, oh, let's just go ahead and get this balcony. I don't necessarily think it was worth the upgrade. I did not like it. And to the point, I don't think I'll ever have another balcony on a Holland ship ever again. As far as like ports I didn't like, wasn't a fan of Bali. And I don't know, and yes, I know I should have done my research, which we didn't want to do anything in Bali. But the only reason we got off the ship is I had read and I had seen some YouTubes where they were trying to do like a more of a port experience with the dancers and they had the market outside and things like that. Nothing prepared me for the cab drivers that were so pushy and so many of them. I mean, there had to be 100 cab drivers. Like it was insane.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that too is that Kimberly would happen to be sick in that time of the cruise and just couldn't warn people about it. But so that's important. And then Tangier, Morocco. Now I will say Tangier, Morocco was kind of controversial in the comments. I had some people that were very upset saying that I should have researched better when it comes to Tangier, which it is 124 days. You cannot give every port the attention that it deserves. And like that was the very last port. So yes, there's part of that. Originally we weren't going to get off, but then we met somebody that was from there at somewhere we stayed before the cruise. And the port talk didn't make it seem as bad as it was. It was definitely an eye-opening experience. Tangier, Morocco, I think, was a polarizing port because there was tons of people that liked it and there was tons of people that didn't. We just happen to fall in that category. So you got to make your own opinions no matter what. And that was just our opinion. So that's just how it goes.
Sure.
As far as the rest of the cruise of things that I didn't like, I didn't like the accounting. I didn't like how they were holding money every day on my card. They've changed up how they do it on the World Cruise. This is the first time they've done it this way, and it just confused my credit card company, and it caused a lot of problems with accounting. And I got to know guest services too well over the fact that my credit card was confused as to why Holland would hold so much money, and because they didn't settle on a regular schedule, they settled based upon debarkation points, and it took my credit card forever to figure out what was going on. So that was frustrating.
Yep.
But I think everything else was, for me, I was good. But what about you? What were some things that you didn't like or places that you didn't like?
I have to agree with them. The balcony thing. Glad we did it. Do it again? No. Bali, it was very, very difficult on me. Again, we were not expecting, it was like an onslaught of taxi drivers, and they would follow you. We would say no to one taxi driver, and they would follow you. And then another person would follow you. We say no to that person. I don't know if that's a culture thing or whatnot, but the bright side of that was the crew was allowed to see their family when they brought them on board, the folks. So that was a bright side of Bali. I have to agree with her. Tangier, Morocco was very overwhelming for me. The minute we got off the bus where the cruise ship dropped us off, I was being physically touched by vendors wanting us to give us their business, whether it was taxi drivers, shopkeepers. I'm not used to that, and I pretty much lost it, and I said, do not touch me again. And they backed off. So again, if that's a cultural issue, it could be our fault for not researching, but I think the cruise ship might have just said, hey, they're very pushy. I came out of this learning the whole new meaning to the word pushy. And to me, I'm not about that. I'm a very low-key person. I enjoy having a good time. But when you're shoving stuff down my throat and you're touching me and you're following me for like numerous amounts of feet, like in Bali.
Mm-hmm. Bali was a long
It
time.
kind of like just blew those two whole experiences, you know? So, again, if it's a culture thing, we didn't educate ourselves, and I take full responsibility for that. But I don't like people touching me, especially from a foreign country. And that was just a thing for me.
I'll also add to things I didn't like is in-room entertainment. Now, most cruise lines will get their ESPN out of ESPN Caribbean. Like that's just how life goes. So when we did the 35-day to Hawaii and Tahiti last year, we did lose ESPN, but yet they still beamed in like some March Madness games and things like that, some major sporting events. They didn't do that for the World Cruise, so it was super easy to lose touch of things, and there were people that were upset that there was no March Madness basketball, or even getting the national football game, the national championship college football game. That was a big deal because it was right at the cusp of when we were supposed to lose ESPN, because I think we lost it either the day prior or that morning. And originally they weren't going to pay for us to get it. And Erica, the entertainment officer, had to say, no, you're going to have to get it. Like, you're going to have to pay the money. And it was like $5,000 or $6,000, which when you talk about how much a world cruise is, that's not a lot per passenger.
Correct.
When you think about it.
Correct.
So it that kind of irritated me too. Like, how do you go through these major like sporting events, and like the Masters did come in because of the Sky News sports channel, but I think as far as like a world cruise, I think the in-room entertainment could have used like a step up a notch, because it was basically you were watching either Food Network or HGTV, and they were on like a 6-hour loop.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that was, and then like I didn't like the movies also, like Mamma Mia never came on.
No.
And I thought the movies would have been a little bit more themed to where we were in the world. So I'll put that also in things I didn't like, which is super random. It's a little small thing, but sometimes those little small things make a big difference when you talk about the length of time we were there.
Yeah, and then you have folks that would say, well, you're on a cruise, why are you watching television? I mean, it's just part of trying to stay connected.
And remember, we had
Yeah.
slews of sea days. This one was not designed to where, I think the 2026 is like they balance out the sea days to port days a little bit better. This is, we would have these chunks of sea days, and so some days you just didn't feel like getting out of your cabin. You were tired,
Yes.
and you just wanted to lay in bed, watch a game, and order room service, and it wasn't always an option. So.
Room service.
Room service. So.
Absolutely.
All right, this one is a weird one. Things we would change or do differently. So I don't know if I would change the balcony room. So that's why I put it in things I didn't like. But that was tough. But things I would do differently. First off, I bought us the drink package because both of us have to get it. That's the rules of cruise lines, even though I don't really drink. But it was like $40 a day total for the two of us to have it, which isn't very much in the scheme of drink packages for cruise lines. And so I said, oh, that'll work out. We can stock up on soda for me, and I can get my iced coffees and things like that. But for us, like, first off, we turned 4-star in the middle of it, so the mini bar became half off at some point, which was like permanent happy hour pricing. But they also ran a lot of drink specials that like I ended up getting one alcoholic beverage the entire time, a spiked milkshake, and on the drink package, and it still cost me money because it went over, even though it was a $5 drink, the computer was reading it as like a whatever and then a special, and so it showed up on the bill for like $1.40 or something like that, and I thought that was silly.
Yep.
So I think the drink package was overrated just because they ran so many drink specials, especially after Sydney, because Sydney was a major debarkation point.
Yes.
So as the ship got less people on it, they started running $5 drafts every day, things like that. So I don't think the drink package was necessary. I would change that and just have paid as we go. And then what was the other thing? Oh, dining time. So we did fixed dining 5 o'clock every day, and we thought, oh, this would be great with C's allergy. Get to know a serving staff, this, that, and the other. About halfway through the cruise, we were tired of going to the dining room. It is, you do have to wear pants, which is kind of frustrating. And then you start seeing the same menus all the time, and some days you just wanted to go to the buffet, but especially with where she pre-ordered, we felt obligated to go. And then you sit there, and some days it just took longer than others. And so I think if I could go back and do it all over again, we would have just done the open seating, which can be dangerous on a lot of cruises, but on the World Cruise, again, especially after Sydney when the ship cleared out, there was never a wait for a table and open seating. So
Sure.
that's something I would do differently if I were to go back and rebook everything. What about you? Anything you would do differently?
What I would do differently?
Oh, and I would pack less clothes because,
Oh, yeah,
like we said, we had
definitely.
outfits, we had clothes we never wore.
Pack less clothes, people. It's okay. It's all right. Nobody cares what you're wearing. Believe me. Everybody looks the same after 124 days. I agree with Em about the drink package, and I like my alcohol. Everybody knows that. It's no joke. But at the end, when things were being offered at $5, like there was a point where I wanted a beer from Australia, and it was on special for $5. But the drink package allows you $11. And the beer was not covered by the drink package because it was on special for $5. And I thought that was kind of weird.
Same, it was the same as my milkshake, where it
Her
was actually
milkshake.
like 12.
Right. So it's like, all right, can you cut me a break here and there? And like, no, you already bought the drink pack. And I'm like, well, I don't want the beer. Why am I going to pay extra money for a beer that's actually $5 that someone does not have the drink package for? But at the end, she's right. I mean, we were able to get Coca-Cola and stock up on that and water, but the alcohol was free flowing towards the end, $5, whatever you want. And I almost felt, I don't feel gypped. I felt kind of like misled.
Yeah,
I
and
don't know
also
how to say
with
that.
the 4-star, my iced coffees would have become half off also. So,
Right.
and because I did like to get an iced coffee after every port, because so many of
Yes.
the ports it was hot outside, so I would come back and have a nice iced coffee.
Yes.
But so I think at the beginning where we felt like we were getting our money's worth out of the drink package, at the end of the day, I don't think it saved us money. I think it caused us to get more drinks than need be, because we felt like we had to get our money's worth out of it. And it just became frustrating. Like Sea loves a good espresso martini, but they were $12, and they would go on special for $5. But if she wanted one, she had to pay an extra $1.40. So the only one she had the entire cruise is when the casino happened to give us a free one.
That's correct.
And
And,
then-
yes, even
and
like
that's
for
a cas-
ginger ales
yeah,
and stuff.
that's
Yeah.
a casino complimentary drink, so you know it's not necessarily made with love and care. So,
Yeah.
but
But
anything else you would go back and do differently if we were to rebook it?
well, less clothes. I mean, we've already addressed that issue. Too many clothes. I wouldn't do a balcony. No. I would do an ocean view or a large interior, and save the money to go on more excursions.
If we went on a decent amount of excursions.
We went on a decent amount of excursions. We chose not to do safaris or overnights, you know, that type of thing.
That being said, I don't know what excursion we didn't go on that we would have replaced it with.
I'm trying to think. It might have been riding the camel.
That excursion got canceled though.
Oh, it did.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
okay.
didn't ride a camel. It was
Alrighty.
Lanzarote, I think they were supposed to do it, but
Oh,
it got canceled.
then you know what? No, I mean, we did all the excursions we chose to go to, and again, we were blessed and so thankful and humbled. And it's just, and it's funny because people think Holland America is just for quote unquote older folks. I would go on another Holland America cruise, and we will continue to go, but we will not go. I'm not going to go on any world cruises. I think it was too long for me. That period of time, 4 months being out and about, it was lovely that you got your stuff made. But for me, I have a dairy allergy, and it got to the point where it was very difficult. Like even going on excursions, you know, like walking through the buffet in Egypt, you know, the gentleman was able to tell me what had milk in it, you know, what had butter in it.
And I got to give that tour company props, because
Yeah.
they never, like, it was just a comment, like when I made the booking on Viator that C had a dairy allergy, and I didn't even think they had thought anything of it until we got to the restaurant, and the guy went and got the manager, and he said, remind me what doesn't have dairy. So I don't know if they had told the restaurant or if he was playing it off, but the restaurant was fully prepared for her at that point. So
Right.
there was only a couple things she couldn't eat, which was nice.
Yeah.
Which was better than the excursion in Peru
Oh,
where,
dear.
where they were deer in headlights when she was like, I can't eat this because I can't have dairy. And they were like, oh.
Even though we had notified our excursion folks on Holland and filled out a form
That they were trying
saying
out.
I had a dairy allergy, and that did not fly. So I think there needs to be a little bit more communication, but doing things differently, that's probably it for me. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't have any regrets.
No.
Absolutely
You know,
none.
and I said throughout the series, there were some things that we didn't know because we didn't know. Like, we didn't know how close we were to the beach in Cartagena, Spain. Not Cartagena, Spain. I can see the town, and I can't remember what it looks like.
Oh dear. I can go get my map if you
Yeah,
want.
yeah, but it doesn't mean that I would change the experience though, because I still enjoyed almost everything we did. Now, I wouldn't have gotten off the hop on hop off from Naples, and it's funny because we've been catching up on our shows. So we watched Amazing Race last night, and it was the Naples because we're watching it on demand, and it was the Naples episode, and that is something.
Yeah.
Looking back, like when we hopped off in Naples, I don't think we should have ever done that. We should have probably just ridden the loop, because Naples, it was just busy because it was the Monday after Easter, but no, I think I'm very content with what we did, you know. Doesn't mean I would do it over again, but
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean I would change anything other than the dining time and the drink package. And maybe I would have just paid for when I did our internet, I did me at a premium internet and her at a regular internet. And I wish I would have just done multi-device premium. I think it would have been easier all the way around, because then my computer could have stayed on internet also instead of having to swap out, because the Apple signing me out on my computer became an issue throughout the
Oh.
cruise, and I'd have to take C's internet to be
Yeah.
able to sign back into some stuff.
Well, you know, it's
a
funny.
two-factor.
You know, you speak to that about premium and such because of your YouTube channel and your other social media. For me, I like internet just to try and read the news, what's going on back home in the world, check the weather, go on Cruise Mapper to see where we're at and whether ships were out, you know, in our area, which was cool. That was cool about the balcony. I was able to see. But the internet, I just like it for basic email. We don't make any phone calls. We did some little FaceTiming with the family to let them know we were still floating
And
around.
FaceTime worked with the basic internet.
Yes, it did.
We were able to FaceTime off C's phone all the time.
Yeah.
With the basic internet. So, and it was neat calling them in the different time zones too.
Yeah, it was. It was very interesting because you didn't want to wake anybody up. But do differently. Those are my thoughts. And again, we were just blessed. And, you know, thanks to Holland America, man. You know, we'll share final thoughts as well.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so final thoughts on this world cruise, and we're going to change this up slightly. We're going to let C go first on this one. So, C, what are your final thoughts?
Mind blown. Experience of a lifetime. And I'm
C's a crier.
I'm
by
a
the way.
crier.
It's one of the reasons that she hasn't been in a lot of the videos.
Yeah, that's right. Here I am. I'm a very emotional person. And my job was a counselor for almost 30-something years. And I'm a people person. And my final thoughts were, I was so scared to go on this journey in the beginning. I didn't know, you know, food-wise, people-wise, would we fit in? You know, who are we going to encounter? People have done this before. You know, I don't know. My fear of the unknown was really, really prevalent. But yet, I was so happy and looking forward to doing something crazy and out of the box that I never thought we would be able to do. And by selling the home, we took advantage of the opportunity, and I'm very grateful and thankful and humbled. My final thoughts were, if you have the opportunity to do this or something similar, to be able to see the world and stay in one place and not have to unpack and pack and all that, do it. You'd be surprised. Places I had never heard of that we actually went to, and I have a map, but I left it inside. It's just amazing. You don't realize how other people live in other parts of the globe. And it was very eye-opening and enlightening. Another final thought would be community. Community with the crew, who actually become your family for 4 months or less, depending when they disembark and change ports and whatever. They become your family. And I was almost like granny to a lot of them, you know, even though I was just another guest on the cruise ship. Holland America, they really make you feel loved, respected, and again, community, family. The clergy on the cruise ship, the rabbi, the priest, and the pastor. Sounds like I'm going into a bad bar joke, right? I think clergy is very important. It gave me a sense of community that I never thought I would ever have. It provided me structure, and I met folks that were in my life for a reason and a season. And if I meet up with them, that's great. It was a wonderful experience. It's humbling. And I still get teary-eyed. And I'm glad that she has made this YouTube that I can reflect back on it, because my memory isn't 100% like it should, but again, as I get older. And we want to share our experience with people out there, wherever in cyberland, that may be thinking about this or may never have the opportunity or do have the opportunity. And again, we're just everyday people. And, you know, we're not famous. We're not social media people. We're just people. Okay. And my final thoughts were, I thank Holland America for doing this and to let people experience things that you probably would never be able to experience in your life in person. Endgame, mind blown.
My final thoughts is I enjoy the experience because, like I said, we had looked at just flying around the world, flying to Australia, New Zealand, and there's a few places that this cruise didn't go that we wish we could have gone to, but then things like Easter Island, if I put it in the plan, it would send the budget out of whack because it is so incredibly difficult and expensive to get to Easter Island. So,
Yes.
you know, I think as a way to see the world, it's a very economical way to see it, and it's a very fun way to see it. And it also provided us the ability to talk to other people. So many people have done the cruise before and been to so many of the ports before. It was easy to find ideas for places that maybe you hadn't had time to research or you weren't sure about, or they would get to know like what you would like or what you didn't like. Because even like the Maldives, originally we were just going to walk around the town, and then Al and Sherry, these friends we had made on the ship, they were like, oh, no, like come with us to this all-inclusive like day pass. You're gonna love it. I'm sure. And all day he just kept saying, I'm so glad we ran into y'all and you ladies were able to join us. This is so nice. This is perfect. This is, which everything but the meal was, but the snorkeling was fantastic. It was the best snorkeling of the trip. And like we wouldn't have had that experience another way. So I agree with Steve. It's a floating community, and it's, you know, I still have days, and it was funny because when we came back, we kept thinking we were going to run into TK or Alan Sherry or Michelle
Or May.
or
Kimberly.
or
Anybody.
Ernie or you know, Steve, because
Edmund.
it's Steve,
JM.
more than just crew.
Yeah,
it's,
I know.
it's Steve's, and Steve was the guy's door I showed with all the magnets and everything. You know, you keep thinking you're going to see these people in public, and you know, and Donna, and we always got her husband's name wrong.
I think it was
John, right?
Donna and her husband.
Yeah, John. Yeah, you know, and things like that. So it
Right.
was the floating community, and it was things that, you know, we would have never been able to experience otherwise. Because I said, we would have never gone to Malta. I had
No.
heard about it as a kid, but it was, for it to be a bonus stop, it was incredible to be there, you know, and so it's, I agree with Steve. If we were going to do something irresponsible with that money, I'm glad we did that. You know, and we've been back about, I think about 7 weeks now. We had a lot to do. We had to find somewhere to live. I am still not with regular employment, but it is okay.
I'm still retired.
And Steve's still retired.
I'm not going back to work. Unless somebody wants to offer me a volunteer job and pay me, that's cool.
But you know, it's still, you know, it's a cool experience, and I'm glad we got to have it and see the world. And it was almost like, even though we didn't see the world on our terms, we still kind of got to see the world on our terms. You know, like, were there places I wish we could have stayed longer? Absolutely. I would have
Yes.
loved an overnight in Singapore.
Yes.
I would have loved more time in Rome, you know,
Yes.
things like that. But, you know, I'm like, see, I'm blessed to have ever been able to go there to begin with. And I know that. So, final thoughts is, if an opportunity ever comes your way, I think you got to do it. You know, I'm glad we didn't, because we had also talked about, let's just sell the house and let's just go to Australia, New Zealand, and then come back and restart in Orlando within a month. But I think we would have sat there and wondered, what if we would have taken the cruise? Or even originally, we were just going to get off in Singapore, but we're bougie flyers. So by the time we flew back to Orlando from Singapore, we might as well have stayed on the cruise. And when it got to the Singapore disembarkation day and we saw people leaving, it was like, I would feel like we would have had a feeling of leaving unfinished.
Yes.
Now, this world cruise was a little different. It was more segments than they've ever had to do, and they're
Yes.
not planning on breaking it up like that ever again. But you know, so it did have its moments where it had a lot of embarkation days, which you don't normally have, but it was still totally worth it, in my opinion.
I
Totally worth
agree.
it.
I agree. And again, we met people that probably never even would have met. Shout out to Cindy, my church buddy in Washington. And it's phenomenal.
Tom and
Again,
Angie.
Tom and Angie,
Yeah,
who I kept calling somebody else, her other name, and then I'm like, oh, my wife's name is not Angie. I'm like, oh, or it is Angie, but I kept calling her something
Cheryl.
else. I'm terrible with names, everybody.
She has
So
to
if
give
there's
everybody a nickname.
anybody out there that I called you by the wrong name, I apologize. But I know your faith.
But final thoughts, I totally think it was worth the experience.
Agreed.
I think for the dollar we paid, I think we got everything out of it that we could. Now, I will say this also as a final thought. It will be more expensive than you think. The cost did kind of get out from under us just because you don't think about how much money you're going to end up spending in port. But, so if you are going to do this, think of what you think you're going to spend and double it. Because that's where you're going to probably end up at. Because we also knew people that were on it for free due to the Alaska program, and they were like, man, I didn't think this was going to cost me so much money.
Yeah.
So final thought, be prepared to spend twice as much as you think you're going to spend.
Yep.
But even with that, I still think it was worth the money.
I think folks should give it a try. If you have the opportunity, give it a go.
even
Holland
a
America
7.
was great.
Yeah, or even
You
in like
know.
a segment or something, I would totally do it.
Yeah, a little segment. But you know what? It's almost like a gut punch because you make friends with folks and then they get off. But then you make new friends with people and they get on, then you get off. But it's like she said, it's a floating community. It was 4 months, and I can't give Holland America enough of props. And I'm not trying to get anything, whatever. This is just me. I'm a very honest person. And again, thank you. Thanks you guys for watching. And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely.
It was great. It was
Sorry.
the very first YouTube series. So.
Yeah, the first time, and again, these are my bracelets, and we're gonna be doing stuff local.
Yeah. So with that being said, make sure you hit that notification button, like, subscribe, and all that fun social stuff as we have finished up this adventure, but we have more on the horizon, so make sure you follow us along. So have a great night. Bye.
Bye.